Okay.
Then
That should be illegal.
First curry. I love curry.
parachute is in the pool.
We've talked about spring break and what it is and what we've seen, and the sheriff just wanted to provide a visual representation to you. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we got about more than 1,000 words out here, as you've seen our level of activity during spring break and how we keep talking about how dangerous it is out there. And I submit to you these 50 guns as evidence. Over the past 30 years, college spring break has been an integral part of Panama City Beach. And at one time, the positive benefits outweighed the negative, destructive elements that we've experienced. However, the past 5 to 7 years, spring break became something bigger, uglier, and much worse than college spring break. The crowds rose to a level that are unsustainable and unmanageable for a community with resources in both manpower and infrastructure that is built for 170,000 residents and a reasonable number of college kids and families. What originally began as a time for college students to come to our beautiful beach for a week to decompress gave way to the many that followed them for the party. As college spring breakers grew in numbers, the party began to attract more short-term visitors and the party spiraled out of control. A dangerous criminal element was also attracted, and we began to experience an increase in violence and lawlessness that has shocked the conscience of our community. We have seen law enforcement valiantly fight this criminal element at great personal and professional sacrifice. We lost one of our own, which should have served as an alarm that spring break was broken. 10 years later, I believe our community has finally reached the breaking point, and we can begin to take the painful but necessary steps to reclaim our community. We made 202 drug arrests and seized 49 firearms. As you can see we've got our firearms on display here that we've seized during spring break this year, as well as the drugs that we've seized here.
And this by far is the most violent, the most difficult to work. And by difficult I mean that generally on the street we have maybe 5 to 7 of our personnel working the beaches area for a 24-hour period. Seeing there's these thugs and the 100-milers that are coming in with all these types of narcotics. They're carrying weapons, and a couple of these weapons were actually used during spring break. And we had to call in additional help from other counties, and the sheriff reached out, and we had multiple agencies say, absolutely, we'll come and help you. And we ended up with 3 different weekends, Friday, Saturdays, and Sunday nights, with almost 40 to 50 law enforcement assisting us. That gave us the edge to be proactive versus, like I said before, being reactive when you're dealing with this type of call volume. There's just no way that we can get out and enforce the seatbelts, enforce the drunks, enforce all of that when we're in a reactive mode for this type of call.
Significant increase this year.
I was just intrigued by the fake checkpoint. Yeah. I was curious, are there any issues, any things that you have to be careful of when you're doing that kind of thing? With, a real checkpoint or a fake checkpoint?
So there are case law and procedures that we follow in dealing with checkpoints, and we don't necessarily utilize checkpoints here.
Okay.
But on a checkpoint, there's case law that deals with it, every certain number of cars that you pull over. What we're doing is with the decoy checkpoint is we're using the level of reasonable suspicion or probable cause before we make a stop, and that could be committing a traffic violation. That could be throwing drugs out the window. That we would use as our basis for a stop.
Is that something you might revisit?
You never know.
Never know.